Let's talk education now. And we're going to be focusing on the placement of students, basic education students in senior high schools and technical institutions. 2 weeks ago, that exercise was conducted, and there are some issues that have arisen. Parents say, parents and guardians for that matter, say they are ill prepared and the cost of everything has gone up. Well, let's have a conversation with some industry players and analysts. We'll be joined by Peter Anti, Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies. We also have Divine, Research Fellow, Africa Education Watch. We just might have some others joining the conversation. But gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Good morning, Benjamin. Thanks for having me.
I believe that is Divine.
Exactly. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, this is Divine.
Peter, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Peter? Okay. All right. So, Divine, I'm going to start with you. When you look at the entire exercise, the placement and everything that has happened in between, parents and guardians have had their own thoughts. But what are your initial reactions looking at the timelines and the flow of events?
All right. Good morning to viewers. For us, we've monitored this year placement, and compared with previous ones, we've seen some level of satisfaction, whereby we have not even seen a case of people trooping into Independence Square to work out their placement. GS has put in structures to ensure that parents that have challenges in schools place a call through for the resolution of that. We also noticed that there have been proud education to this particular selection of school, and that has also actually helped in resolving some of the challenges that we have been facing. And the major thing is still remains about the fact that some number of students have not been placed and they have to do self-placement, and that is understandable. More so also that there are people who still find it difficult to appreciate why although they have good grades, they have still not been placed in their preferred choice. And that also, there's a legitimate reason for some of those occurrences. I believe what needs to be done is the education, so that once we all have the education, we even understand that a child can have grade 6 and yet not get his or her first choice or second choice or even third choice. It's very possible, depending on the whether you are selecting days to the boarding or a day when you were doing your selection of school, or whether you selected a subject or a program that is highly competitive. It's very likely that you could have a good grade, but due to the nature of the competitiveness of that program, you may not necessarily have your choice of school. So I believe we will still have to do intensive education so that parents can still appreciate that some of these challenges could be addressed. I also want to believe that we have a long way to do in order to increase the percentage of students that are automatically placed. If you look at the percentage compared with the previous year, this year, those that were placed are about 66% automatically placed, 66%. And that tells that about 34% will have to do self-placement, as against 79% last year. The number keeps decreasing. Those that they do self-placement for, automatic placement for, the number keep increasing from the previous 3 years. And we believe the essence of the computerized system is to ensure that we have more of the automatic placement. So for us, I believe we need to do more in order to forestall some of these decreasing rates in terms of the automatic placement, so that the number that will be left for self-placement will just be minimal.
Divine, do tell. What do you feel the GES got right this time round on the back of some of what we've seen? You were mentioning the Independence Square and long winding queues and all of that. What do you feel the GES got right this year to forestall some of those incidents? I mean, I'm looking at what they did right, because then we can latch onto that, and in years to come, you know, still stick to, you know, the positives that we've got, and continue learning, so that we don't repeat mistakes from the past.
All right, thanks, Benjamin. Yes, as I've mentioned, this year, proud to the selection of school, we've seen that GES has intensified education about how the whole selection should be. heads were educated, teachers were educated to also assist parents regarding the selection of school. And I believe that has also actually helped. Some people, they were oblivious of the 16-kilometer catchment rule, and some of them have now appreciated it. So it guides them in the selection of their school. There are students that prior to the selection of school do not have some certain knowledge about whether even if you have a good grade and you can still miss out on your first or second choice, they do not know, but with the education, some appreciated that they could. And then also we know that GS has had dedicated call centers where parents could call to resolve some of these issues. And although there will be continuous information flow from GS, from Ministry of Education, about education as to whether you have been placed or not, or whether you've not been placed, there are still avenues for placement. This year we're talking about in excess of 550,000 students that have to be posted or placed in senior high school. The GS continuously to assure that whether your child has missed out on placement or not, they are still committed to that. There are avenues for that. The window has not closed on anybody, so there shouldn't be any fear for that. I believe that constant flow of information from them has assuaged the fear of many parents, and then having dedicated call center for parents to reach out to is one of the best practices that we can keep going forward.
So a dedicated call center and all of that. But you have also said that we have a long way to go in terms of students that are automatically placed. Can you expatiate on that? What exactly are the pitfalls that we ought to be addressing?
All right, it's hard to understand why there is a constant decrease in the number over the 3 years period. If you look at this year, like I said, only 66% of students that qualify for placement were automatically placed, as against 69% last year. The system, this is how it works. A child who selects a particular school, let's say school A, if that child selects school A and selects day or boarding, let's say the child selects boarding school, even if the child has a very good grade, the system of first of all will have to look at the merits. How many students have passed to qualify for boarding facility in that particular school? So if the number is oversubscribed, the system will look at the best grade to say, okay, that some students are having 6, 7. So let's first of all select 6 and grade 6 and 7 so that we place them first. And then if the child who even qualifies for that particular, having 8, qualifies for that particular school, but yet has not selected boarding because boarding facility has been subscribed or has been filled to capacity, that child will not be automatically given day student. No, will not be placed on day. That child will have to be moved to his or her second choice, even though you are qualified. But just because there has been oversubscription of the boarding facility in your your grade A school, the system will not say because you have selected that as your first choice, the system will not do that. The system will not do that. What the system will do is to move you to your second choice. So we've seen that because of the competitiveness of the whole system, I believe a lot of people are falling short of being automatically placed. And this is more to the disadvantage of people in the rural area. If you look at our BC regional disaggregation or this district level disaggregation, you see that there is a sharp divide where most of the schools in the district level, rural districts or the private districts as we call them, you see that they have continue to fall below the national average. And this particular student are the one that bears the brunt of this issue of automatic placement. So you would have seen that students with best grade would have already been filled in their preferred choices, and then those with poor grades would have falling short of it. So probably could account for the fact that maybe we have had a number of students who have not had good grade this year, and therefore could be accounting for the lack of automatic placement, or there could be a very high competitiveness for the placement in whether you should be a boarding student or whether a particular program you have subscribed to. Science, we know, have mostly been oversubscribed. A particular program you have been subscribed to in your school because the competitiveness of that program, there's a lot of people in it. You couldn't have it, and therefore you have to go back and do your own self-placement. Some of these issues account for the low automatic placement. So I believe going forward, we'll have to look at it and see how best maybe we expand, because there's a high demand for category A and then category B school. What we'll need to do is to expand facility in the other categories of school. Once we're able to do that, you see that students will want to go to such school, because most of the time students are placed but they do not go. We are talking about an average of 10 to 15% of students who are placed but they do not go, just because of the school they've been given. They do not feel that is what they want to go to there, and it could be mostly due to the structure facility that are in this school. When we are able to improve facility in these lesser category schools, the demand on category A and B school will be less. And when we are able to achieve that, you see that we'll be able to increase the percentage of our students that are automatically placed. I believe that is what we need to put attention on, be able to increase facilities in these lesser category schools.
Right, let me bring in Peter Anti now. Peter, thank you for joining the conversation. I'd just like to find out from you, Peter, what is your initial assessment or reaction to the placement this year? In previous years, we've had a very torrid time, long queues and all of that, parents and guardians frustrated. This year, what is your take on the process so far?
Thank you very much and good morning. I think that we are improving. If you compare it to, as you said, previous years, you'll see that there's been a considerable improvement in the process. And if there are any hitches, I naturally want to place it on the doorsteps of the parents and guardians and who are supposed to help the students select the good school. So for this year, you will see there is an improvement over last year. Last year was an improvement over the last 2 years, and it keeps going that way. And we hope that a time will come that after the list is released, everybody will just go to his or her selected school and wouldn't have any people complaining about not placed in a school, or they've been placed in a school where there are no boarding facilities and so on and so forth.
Okay, so that is your initial reaction. I've been interacting with Divine, who has also said that there are some systemic challenges that ought to be addressed. And he talks about the fact that we have a long way to go in terms of students being automatically placed, for example. What is your reaction to that?
Yes, I think the system is not foolproof. There are challenges with the system. I said last year that in Ghana, where we use technology to solve problems, we tend to use technology to create more problems, especially when we had the issue of people going to the Independence Square to queue for their students to be placed or their placement to be changed. But from that time, I've seen a lot of improvement, and that is what I was saying, that mostly challenges with school placements should naturally be placed at the doorsteps of parents, teachers in the schools, and those who are supposed to guide the kids to select appropriate schools. I think the understanding is not there. And when people understand how this thing works, I think that we will be solving the problem, like 80% of the problem, because they would not select schools that they know that they will not be placed. They will not also wait till the list is out, and then they would be moving here and there, thinking that they can change the schools that they have already selected by themselves and they have been placed by themselves by the system. So the system needs improvement. I wouldn't disagree with that. But basically, the problem is with those who help the kids to select the schools, parents, and then sometimes the teachers who guide them. And if you're able to fix that part of the puzzle, we are solving the problem. We've solved the problem 80%.
Right. Let's talk about the timing, gentlemen. And I'd like us to look at how long it's taken to get to this point, and the fact that parents and guardians are complaining, lamenting that while the process has been pretty smooth and non-eventful or uneventful, the timing is not exactly good for them. Let's look at the timing. 2 weeks ago, the placement was conducted by the Ghana Education Service. When you look at our academic calendar, and how this is coming at this time, what do you see? Are there any problems that we ought to be addressing moving forward? I'll come to you, Divine.
All right, thanks. Yeah, we have also received from, Africa Education World, we received some of these complaints regarding the fact that they believe that the time that results have been released and the time students have to report to school is of very short notice. And we want to share into that light with parents. And the reality is that although school is to resume today, you will not see majority of students resuming. Even this week, you will not see majority of them resuming this particular week. And some of them will have to stay home longer than the first week to be able to prepare to come to school. So these issues are very legitimate. I believe that those can be addressed at the school level, where schools will still have to compromise with students that will have to be coming in late because of the fact that they have not been adequately prepared to resume school. That is an issue that is legitimate on the part of parents. But on the whole, I believe the system, the academic calendar has been structured. Right now, we are not more doing double track. What we are doing is the cohort system, the cohort system. So you see all the first year students on coming to school. You not see part of first year student coming to school, and there's part of them being at home as we used to see previously. So today, all the first year students are resuming school. You just notice that by last Friday, second year students have finished their examination and they have gone home. They are going to spend like 2 months home before they resume. By the time they resume, then you see that the third year also will be preparing for their examinations, people for the coming also of the first year. This is the structure that we have. And if we want to make the effective use of the academic calendar so that you do not have contact loss, I believe as the students have stayed home very long enough. I mean, the first year student, right? I think they finished their examination in November. Parents who could have anticipated that at least if my child is going to a particular school, there are some basic preparations that I need to do for that particular child. So I don't feel that we should get to the point to say that students will have to stay home longer for preparation. Right from the point of finishing their BC, I know some will argue that maybe you don't know whether your child will have qualified, but the reality is that at least there could be some basic preparation done for the child to resume school. So as I mentioned, some of them may not resume this first week. Those that will be able to resume, I think we just have to let that be that they resume. Those that would be able to, the school will just have to understand that maybe a week later, they will also be resuming.
For you, Peter, how does this reflect on our academic calendar, which has been pretty fluid over the last few years? And I say fluid because it's not static and you don't know exactly when, as a parent or a guardian or even a student, when school would reopen. And it's been in a bit of a flux, partly on the back of COVID-19. But in this particular instance, how do you view this situation? Is it too short a window for parents, guardians, and students themselves? What's your take?
Well, I think that there's something that GES, the Ministry of Education, and WAEC are not telling us. Maybe one day we'll find out. Because if you look at the day that the academic calendar was released, most of us were shocked that first years will go to school in April, because they had written the exams in, I think, November. And naturally, it takes WAEC 2 months to mark, process, and release the results. So even if you say 3 months, it's like December, January, February, and then by February, and then the results should have been out. Then you have March to do your placement, and then by mid-March, you have students preparing to go to school. But then GES, when they released their calendar, they said that the students will report in April. It means that in their mind, they were certain when the results would be released and everything. And therefore, this is where they thought would be appropriate for the students to go to school. And that is what, for me, is problematic. So although parents had advanced knowledge about when their first years, their kids will have to report to school, they didn't know which schools that their case will be placed because the placements have not been released. And we saw WAEC taking almost like 3 to 4 months to get this thing done, and then GES taking over. So I think that there's something that GES, the ministry and WAEC have not told us, and we will need to find out one day, because you look at the sequence of events and the timing that they decided to ask the first years to report. It means they had prior knowledge of when all these processes would end and the students will be ready to get to school.
We appear to be losing Peter Anti there. The feed not exactly the best this morning. We'll try to reconnect with.
Hello.
Okay, Peter, you're back. I can hear you now. Please go ahead with the point you were making. We missed a bit of it.
So that is how personally I see it, and I think that next time we should not. Hello, can you hear me now?
I can. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, so that is how we see it personally. But I hope that next time students and parents will be given enough time to be able to prepare and get their awards to school. Of course, the practice where we say that students get to school the first week and nothing substantial is done should not be the case. I know that in some of the schools, so far as schools reopen from today, some of the schools, I must repeat this, some of the schools, technically, academic work might begin somewhere Wednesday. And if you are not able to get your award to the school, it means that you're going to lose out. So we need to get to a situation whereby when schools reopen, at least 2 days after school reopen, everybody is in school, and then we can get the academic work going on. Because already, as you said, a lot of time has been wasted, and we don't need to waste more time on this because of some of these things. And if you are not also careful, what is going to happen is that we are going to have a situation whereby even the number of years that the students are supposed to spend in school, they are not going to get that number of years and contact hours and all those challenges that are associated with it. So we will need to up our game, especially Ministry of Education and Ghana Education Service, and make sure that some of these releases are done in time, so that the students most of them will get to school at appropriate time and they can begin their academic work.
Peter, just hold for me. I have a brief question on the back of what you've just told us, but let me also usher in Vincent Ekwo Asafua, a Member of Parliament for Old Tafo constituency and Member of Parliament's Education Committee as well. Vincent, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning.
Right. Just hold for me. Peter, so from what you say, you intimate that a lot of parents don't understand the placement system and all of that. Some of them are now calling for an extension of the reopening of schools. I heard Divine talk about the fact that they should have been expecting their awards to go to school anyway. But is there any justification in there for those who are saying extend the reopening of schools and that it's too tight for us? What's your quick take?
Well, I think some of us who have been in this system know this, that when we say school reopens on the 4th or the 5th, it doesn't mean that you should take your award to school on the 4th or the 5th. So that is the day that school reopens. If your preparations are not enough or you are not ready to take the award to school, you can't wait after a week and then you take the award to school. I don't think any school would ask your award to go back home if you report a week after school reopens. I don't think that would happen. So it is important that we announce the reopening of schools. But parents should also, I think parents should take their time and make sure that their preparations are uptight before they take their awards to school. Of course, definitely they will miss out on certain things on campus, maybe some orientation and other things, but you cannot do anything about it. I don't think it is also appropriate for GES to extend any reopening date. I think it is good that they maintain the time that the students are supposed to report. And however, assure parents that they still have a window of opportunity to still send their awards to school when they are ready, at least by the middle of this month. Every kid who has been placed and is not having any challenges should be enrolled in his or her school. I think this should be the way to go and not an extension.
Right. Vincent, you've been in this space for a while, even at a point speaking education. Now you find yourself on Parliament's Education Committee. When you look at the placement system this year, what are your quick takeaways, the pluses and the minuses?
Well, let me say a very good morning to you and to your cherished viewers and to my friend Peter. I must say that there seems to be an improvement almost every year. And this system seems to be very perennial, where almost every year we have complaints from beneficiaries of this system, that is the CSSPS,
Right.
whereby the complaints largely centers on, one, the lack of understanding of the process as to how the system actually works. And so I have maintained this position that there should be a way that we should take the human aspect of the whole computerized placement system, because that seems to be the bane of the challenges that we are facing. If you want to go strictly IT or strictly online, we do strictly so, and take off the human aspect out of it, whereby people will have to be tagged and people will have to be made to understand that based on merit, the computerized placement system will place you at a place that you deserve. Where there seems to be some amount of whom you know and giving some people an upper leverage as to the schools that they are able to get or not, seem to be the bane of the computerized placement system. Having said that, the Ghana Education Service and the Free SHS Secretariat over the years, some months prior to the placement itself, goes on what we call a sensitization program, whereby the stakeholders, that is parents, schools, students, of like pupils, teachers, and heritage and none other stakeholders of the Ghana Education Service are sensitized about that particular year's kind of placement that they want to do. Now, largely, it seems to be almost the same, but almost every year there is some lessons that are being learned, and so the Free SHS Secretariat and the Ghana Education Service is able to learn on, improve on some of these challenges that they face. And so the sensitization program, Cocksure, that almost every year it goes on. This year went on, they engaged the proper stakeholders. But my problem with the CSSPS is the human element that comes in there, whereby you can go to one particular school. They will tell you maybe the cutoff point based on the system that they've programmed, maybe 9. It is possible that you go to that school and still find other students who probably got more than 9. I know of a certain quota that they give to some public students. But of course, we find out that there are some human element in there, whereby people in authority, people who think that they know other people, make sure that they get schools that they want, or they really want their kids or their wards to be in there. And so that has been the challenge of the CSSPS. But apart from that, by and large, it seems to be a system that keeps on growing year on. And I think that the Ghana Education Service, PSHS Secretariat, should be able to learn from the experiences as far.
Do you feel, just because you brought in this bit, the placement system, is it serving its purpose in terms of the mix? Because part of it is also to ensure that people with different categorizations can get into A and B class schools and all of that. But we still see some struggles in there in terms of placement. What is your quick take on that? How can we fine-tune the system to ensure that we can get more and more people in schools that ordinarily maybe they wouldn't have got in, so that at least we can have some fairness across the board?
Well, I mean, that brings the question of equity, not equality per se, because there are some students that, if given the opportunity to be in certain basic schools, private schools, and even some government schools, if those kids were in those schools, trust me, they would have done better than where they found themselves. And that is how come the Free SHS policy or the Free SHS implementation guidelines had it that there are some kids who, want to be, or who we need to be able to support them because of their background. And That is why I said there's a certain 30% public school policy whereby some schools or some students who are coming from a certain background who may not be having the necessary environment to be able to compete fairly or equitably with other students are given such edge so that they will find themselves into better schools. And in fact, the record also shows that such students, when given the opportunity for the past 5 years with the implementation of the free SHS, have shown that it was not the wrong decision, or it was not the wrong policy guideline to have made those then benefit in such a manner. And so that is not a bad policy in its sense. But of course, I've already maintained that there seemed to be the edge of people abusing such a policy and making it look as if that there should be a certain kind of protocol whereby people who do not even deserve to be in certain schools are allowed to go to such schools. And so I am saying that for the policy, and if you like, for the computerized placement system to be robust, to be effective, and for people to believe in the system itself, there should be a certain amount of sensitization which will breed some credibility around the system. Because as we speak, we still have a number of students who do not have schools or who have not been placed at all. And they will go to the self-placement portal, they will not find schools, or there will be some schools that will not be good for them in their estimation, because if a student is living in Old Trafford constituency, there seems to be no school that you can find on the portal from Old Trafford or its environs, whether Kwabri East or what have you.
Right.
That student will want to be in a day school. Then certainly, that student will say that I'm not getting school. Meanwhile, there are schools probably in Jobonso, in Bankai, and other places where day schools may be available. The students are also not choosing it. And so my point is that there should be a certain kind of relook as to how the computerized placement system is being done, so as to be able to meet the growing needs of the people, the trends that we have, so that we will not be having so much challenges. Because 1 week after placement, if the students are still saying that we do not have school, it means that for the past 5 years we haven't learned enough, because It seems to be perennial. Almost every year we have this kind of problem. So if we still have this challenge now, I think that we haven't learned enough. And I think that the Ghana Education Service and the PSHS should be able to think around the box and see how we'll be able to deal with this matter going forward.
Right. Let me stay with you, Vincent. And this is because I've broached this matter with the others who are speaking to us, Peter Anti and Divine Pe. It has to do with the fact that some parents are saying extend the reopening schedule for us a bit. Extend it because we are not prepared. We're ill prepared. But I'll give it particular context in posing the question to you. The Daily Graphic, for example, has conducted research interacting with some parents and guardians. And this is what they had to share. So from last year, it is said that costs of items have gone up by about 50%. And here's a typical example. Looking at today's Daily Graphic. Chop boxes that were 200 CDs or 80 CDs last year are now 120 CDs. A trunk that was going for about 200 CDs is now going for 300 CDs. Let's look at mattresses, for example. Last year, they were selling at around 95 CDs. Those are the student mattresses, now selling for 130 CDs. You are fully aware of the economic situation. With parents lamenting all of these and you know the different dynamics we're seeing in the system, do you feel it is justified for maybe an extension to be given?
Well, I don't think that this should be a wrong concern on the part of parents, especially looking at the times that we find ourselves. We've always maintained that we are not in normal times. And as I said, that is not the only reason that is making students not get to school this week. The environment and the mentality of some students that they will be able to change their schools as well. And so that means that there are a lot of contributing factors as to why students may not be able to go to school this week, being the reopening date. But yes, the economic situation that you are talking about, the president and every well-meaning Ghanaian I have always maintained that, yes, it is not the doing of anybody, but this is the situation that we find ourselves. I associate myself with the fact that, yes, if you were buying a mattress, for example, 200 Ghana cedis last year, just a year, you're buying same mattress for maybe 300 or 350. That's a genuine concern. But of course, the government is also trying to do its best by making sure that the other things that related to when you get to the school, you have to be buying, you have to be paying for. For example, if you are in a boarding school, your feeding cost. If you're also not in the boarding school, some cases about uniforms that the government is also providing you, quite a number of things that you're also going to get. And so definitely the government is also doing its part. It is not wrong if parents may want to ask for more, especially those with deprived surroundings and coming from deprived areas, and they are a big challenge with respect to resources.
Right.
These are genuine concerns that if parents are calling for, I don't think it's in the wrong direction. Be that as it may, we also want to understand the situation that we find ourselves, especially looking at the economic fundamentals and even what the status of government with respect to its economic strength. And these are things that if we're able to juxtapose with each other, then there should be some amount of a burden share, if you like, so that parents who may have to do their best, even though in the circumstances it is difficult. Government is also difficult, but government is also trying to do its best. But going forward, we pray for a better economy, and so that after the economy has been resuscitated, which we are made to believe, then of course we will be able to look at some of these things. But at the interim, in the short term, I think it is very difficult for government to come in to, as it were, be buying chop boxes and mattresses and other things for students. It may not be possible in this short term. But of course, maybe going forward, when we have most of our things well in place, I think that government may be able to have a relook at some of these challenges.
Peter, let me come to you on this bit. I hope we still have Peter. Now, the days of kalabule and price regulation, stiff price regulation, are in the past. But on the back of the economic situation currently in the country, and considering the fact that parents and guardians are bleeding money, some of them are saying that the traders, people who sell the things they need, are also taking undue advantage of the situation, and they are charging as much as 50% or in some cases 100% on the actual cost of items. What do you think government can do about such a situation to ensure that parents and guardians don't go out of pocket?
I don't think that we would want to go into a situation whereby government starts regulating some of these things, because the very moment that government starts doing that, the floodgates will be opened. Other places would also require that government does same, and I don't think that is the way to go. I think that it's unfortunate that parents will have to cough out a lot of money to get their awards prepared for school. I think it's very unfortunate, but that is these are the times that we are in, and parents should be ready for that. I would have wished that since you knew as a parent technically that your ward will be going to school somewhere in April, you would have started buying some of these things as early as possible to avoid the price hikes that we are experiencing now. But so far as that you didn't do it, and this is the situation that we are in, I would never call for government to come in and regulate any price of any item. What government might want to do, which I think he will not do, because we are already having serious issues with financing so many aspects of our economy, might have been to find ways and means to get some of these things for the kids who are going to school. But this is not possible because the finances are not there. So I would just wish that the parents would appreciate the times that we are in and cope with it as much as they could. If they cannot provide everything for the world, I think that when they talk to their wards, And then maybe another area that would have been that would be very fruitful would be to also admonish the school authorities. So in this case, the Ministry of Ghana Education Service can admonish the school authorities to maybe make it more flexible when it comes to the things that they have in the prospectus, so that when kids are not able to, or parents are not able to get everything on the prospectus, the kids can still go to school. I think that is one avenue that we can touch and make sure that the kids get to school. But to ask government to enter to enter the market and start regulating the price of chop boxes and other things, I think it's going to be way out of order.
Right. Divine, your quick take on that. What is your reaction? Should government intervene?
Well, as rightly said by Peter, it's very difficult to ask for our government to intervene at this point. I believe that people are taking advantage of the situation. We can't deny that people are really taking advantage of the economic situation. You go to the market today, the next day the prices are different. When you see that there hasn't been any change regarding the cost of transportation or anything else, but if you hear that the source of production, they tell you they have not changed their price, this by retailers continue to change price. People are indeed taking advantage of the economic situation to increase costs unnecessarily. But generally, I believe right now we don't have to see how best we all cope. The president says they are doing measures to get it out of this mess. So we only have to cope and see how best we deal with this. And I believe that, as I agree with Peter, that the schools will have to also be flexible with parents when a child comes to school and they have inspected the items listed in the prospectus and they are not up to. They have to understand, once the parents says, okay, give me some time for me to fix this out or to get this item, the schools will also have to try best to understand the parents so that we do not put undue pressure on all of the parents at this particular economic challenge we are in now.
All right. So there are two quick matters I want all three of you gentlemen to address for me. But right before we get into them, I want, in about some 20, 30 seconds from each of you, I want what you think. One major thing you think we should do to make the CSSPS system better moving forward. I'll start with you again, Divine. Just one thing that you feel we should be targeting for each of you gentlemen with the CSSPS system.
Okay, I've mentioned that, and that is for us to address the infrastructure challenges in the lower rated schools that we have less that demand for. This is because you see that the demand for category A and B schools is putting pressure on the system. If we are able to improve the situation in the lesser category schools, I believe students will be able to opt for them, and even if it is self-placement, some will want to go there as well.
Okay.
To be able to address that. And also in the meantime, what we at Africa Education, what we are also suggesting is that if you look at it, those that are disadvantaged when it comes to this self-placement are students that are in deprived communities. And they are going to probably select schools that will be outside their catchment area, the 16 kilometers requirement. And once they are there, they do not have a hostel facility. They will have to pay an average of, let's say, 3,000 Ghana cedis for private hotel. That is even more than the cost of free senior high school that government pays a year for a student. The government pays an average of 2,000 Ghana cedis. And if I go to private hotel outside my catchment area and there's a day student,
right,
it tells you that I'm even paying more than the free senior high school. So government should intervene. Students that are going to be in private hotel, government to see how best they can also benefit in terms of cost to push in their private hostel accommodation.
All right, hold for me. Peter, your quick take, maybe just one in about some 30 seconds. What one thing should we be targeting?
Yeah, for me, it's about education. Parents should be educated. I think that it should be mandatory but for every school to organize some kind of workshop for the parents of the kids in the school before they do the placement. And parents who do not attend these workshops should make sure, the school should make sure that the parents have had some sort of education before they take their awards through the registration process. I think that is one of the challenges that we are having. If you understand how the system works and you know the capability of your ward, you will not select a school that you know technically your ward will not be able to make up. So we should do that. Some people also suggesting that the placement, the selection of schools should come after you've finished or the WAEC have released the BEC results. I think it's something that we can also look at, that instead of selecting before you write, you know your results before you select the schools. I don't know how that will work, but I think that is also another way to deal with some of the challenges that we are facing.
All right. For you, Vincent, very quickly, if you could impact the CSSPS system, if there were one thing you could do, what would you address?
Well, Benjamin, you see the self-placement system. When students are not able to get schools, and for that matter, they go online to go and do self-placement.
Right.
There's something that I have noticed over the years. There seem to be some people who are self-employed in that arena, goes online and do self-placement for quite a number of people who are also using that as a quasi-business or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
But if we're able to link the computerized system with individual index number, i.e., when you key in once to do self-placement, you cannot do any other self-placement for any other person. When that happens, then it means that there will be a number of schools on the portal that students themselves will be able to choose by themselves. And this will be able to be done with proper sensitization, with content-based analysis and content-based education, especially for trainers, like teachers themselves, district directors. And it shouldn't be just about a month or a week or two before or prior to the placement. But of course, it should be a year-long thing so that the stakeholders themselves will be able to understand the processes of the computerized placement system.
Right. Our phone lines are active. You can reach out to us and share your thoughts with us. 0302-211-691 extension 2. If you're a parent, if you're a guardian, if you're a student, and you feel constrained in these times, if you have any concerns, you have some major stakeholders on the line with us. Just reach out and share your thoughts with us. 0302-211-691 extension 2. It will be rolling on your screen so you can reach out to us. Do call, let us know what you think. But gentlemen, the two quick issues I wanted us to discuss. One of them, and that's why I wanted us to conclude on the CSSPS briefly. One of them has to do with the latest NUCS election. And I bring that up because it also falls into the educational space. Over the years, we've had so many bits about political influences, about how charged the system is getting, even at the student level. Now, with the recent elections, we've heard of all kinds of gross violations and electoral issues. How do you react to these, and what do you think we should be doing to stem the tide of these events? I'll start with you, Divine.
Okay. All right. It's interesting seeing what is emerging out of the recent NUCS election. I have seen instances where posters of two people have emerged as the winners or the president of for NUCS or president-elect, same as the Secretary for Education. Obviously, we have been on this road before. We've seen NUCS divided on this front because two people were emerged, or in quote, emerged to be the president for the union. And it appears we are on that particular trajectory again, which appears also that we have not learned from previous lesson. We cannot discount political interference in student politics, right from tertiary institutions, the universities, even if you go to colleges of education.
Divine, pardon me.
Pardon Association of Ghana, their election.
Pardon me, Divine. I just have to interject here. We'll have to balance this. So let me pick Samuel from Nsawam, who is calling on this matter. Sam, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
All right. Thank you for calling to share your thoughts. What exactly are the issues on your mind?
Okay, I'm calling on behalf of my ward, who attends Father Regis.
Who attends?
Father Regis, Reverend Father Regis, GHS.
Okay, where is that? In Nsawam?
It's at Nsawam, yeah.
Right.
221 students wrote this BC exam, including my daughter. When the results were released, the mathematics was withheld.
Okay.
Now, the school placement came on a Saturday, and then on the following Monday, the mathematics was released.
Okay.
As I speak with you, 221 students, some having 8 ones, my ward has 6 ones, doesn't have a school. no placement. He has not been placed.
Wow.
The girl is so frustrated, shattered.
That's quite a concern. So you say some of them even have 8 ones, and your daughter
Yes.
has 6 ones.
My daughter has 6 ones.
Right.
I could get 6.
I'm curious to find out, what did she get in mathematics? The
One in mathematics,
She got 1 in mathematics.
1 in English, 1 in social studies, 1 in science,
Right.
1 in French, and 1 in BD. So he scored 6 and had all the core 1.
That's
And
quite
she's
a
in the house
concern.
now. She's not even able to eat, do anything. And it's not only her. 221 students of that school, because of the mathematics, doesn't have a school at all. We've gone to the head teacher. He's doing whatever he wants to do about it, and nothing is going on.
Has there been any communication from WAEC on the back of this? Yes, their grades have been released, but has there been any dynamic or anything like that the headmaster has
after
shared?
their investigation, they realized that, okay, the kids, though some had whatever they had, but I'm talking particularly that at least, if I don't know about all the students, I know what my child has, and I've printed it out. So I don't see the reason why my child got 6, this girl started to get 6, and is still at home, not pleased at all.
Right.
And not only her. If it's her, I'll say it's a different situation. But I'm talking about 221 students. And some of them I had even had 7 ones, 8 ones, and even in particular I had 9 ones. No school.
Right. Confirm the name of the school again. Father what? Reverend Father
Father
what?
Regis. Reverend Father Regis. JHS.
Reverend Father
Regis. It's a Catholic school.
Right.
It's a public school.
Right. I just wanted it so that anyone listening, the authorities would be able to follow up on that situation.
Okay.
Thank you, Samuel, for calling.
Yes,
We have Patience from Kotobabi. Patience, good morning.
Morning, Mr.
Right. So, do you have a ward, a child who has been placed?
Yes, please. Please, I have twins. They
You have
attended
twins?
New Page International School at Kotobabi.
Right.
The new town.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, I'm listening. Go ahead.
Yeah. My ward wrote the BEC, and they have a pending result,
Right.
which is on the BDT. I reported to the school headmaster, and they said they are working on it. So last week, Tuesday, I went to the placement office to make a placement for my work, and I was told that with the pending results, they can't do anything about it.
Wow.
I have to go to WAEC. So I went to WAEC, and WAEC is working on it. So now, and honestly speaking, I'm a single mother, and my walls are 2. I don't know what to do. And as at now, they are home, no food, nothing. Myself, I'm very worried about it.
How long has it been again since you went to WAEC? How long has it been?
I went to WAEC on Thursday.
Okay.
Thursday, they said they are still working on it. So I'm home right now. Whether to go to the placement office, to go to WAEC, I don't know. And my girls are home. Others have started school, and they are home.
When you went to WAEC, what were you told?
They said they are working on it. They have to investigate the reason why the result is pending.
Right. So that's a pretty thorny situation. But thank you for sharing your experience with us, Patience from Kotobabi. So we have people who say our results were withheld and then released, but no placement process for about 221 people. That was Samuel from Insawam. In this instance, results pending. In the meantime, it's a parent and her wards that are sitting on pins and needles. Let's usher in Imoru from Wasa. Imoru, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for joining the conversation. What is your concern about the placement system?
Yes, my concern here is I have a younger brother who also completed and did not get placement. And when I went onto the system to do the self-placement, the schools which were there, in fact, it is not encouraging. Because
Which schools were there?
Who is willing to do a technical course, and you go online, you find none of such courses there. And schools there too are not closer to where you live. Because I went on there, I tried Western region, because currently we are we are in the Western region, and I wanted to get schools that are around the region. In fact, I find it difficult getting one, because the boy is just 15 years, very, very small. You have to get a place where you can always get contact to him and check on him, whether he has been going to school, whatever he's doing. And this boy, you have to go for a day. Day student, very small, you have to get a rent and all sort of things. In fact, the system is not helping. The system is not helping. I wish the WIEC and Minister of Education should come out and explain more for us to understand, because you cannot buy all these things, go in for rent, go to, move very far across about 2-3 regions to get a rent for a small boy or girl to because of education. In fact, it is not helping.
It's a headache. Thank you, Imoro, for sharing the experience. So some petitions there coming through from parents and all of that. Harriet is in a Shaiman. Do we have Harriet? Do we have Harriet? It appears we've lost Harriet right when I was coming to you. My apologies if you held on for too long. But for those of you who are watching, you can still call in and share your quick thoughts. I know you are on the floor, Divine, but just hold for me. Let me, while we are yet to get a call. Vincent, how do you react quickly to some of these, callers and what they are saying? Very quickly. We have another caller on the line. All right, we've lost Vincent as well. We have Nicholas in Tema. Nicholas, thank you for joining us. What are your concerns?
I think I have issues with WIEC. Right.
What specific issues?
If you listen to, I think Samuel called, and then the lady who called about her child's resource pendant. WIEC is also contributing to this problem that we are currently experiencing. Before you release the resource, if there are issues with children's resource, you need to resolve all of them before you release the resource.
Right.
But we have a situation where WIEC releases resource. Some they say exam or party, some they say pendant. Now, in the end, you investigate the child. It turns out that the child doesn't have any issue. But then, GES will not place that child because the child is having issues with the result, because either for suspected exam or party or for pending issues. That is what we are currently facing. So why doesn't WIEC take its time, resolve all issues? When the children write the exam, if there are issues of exam or parties, you make sure that you investigate, make sure that those who have failed, you fail them. Those who have passed, you pass them before you release the results. So that every child will be placed, so that you will not have a situation where a child will be unpended, and then GS will not place that child. Because if you are unpended, that means you are having issues with your results.
Right.
Why doing this to our children?
Right.
So I think WIEC is contributing greatly to this problem that we are having with children's placement. They need to sit up. People are not doing their work in this country.
Right.
If you release results, when you know there are issues with the results, so some will be going to school while some are waiting for no fault of theirs.
Right. So you feel WIEC is also complicit. Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your thoughts. It just paints a picture of where exactly we find ourselves. Right before we wrap on the conversation as well, let me just, to be fair to the rest of you who are still online, Divine and Peter, and to wrap properly with you. So you were addressing something on the Nooks situation. Divine, in 30 seconds, wrap on that. I'll give the same opportunity in about 30 seconds to Peter, and we'll draw the curtain. So Divine, over to you.
I better use the time given me to talk about what some of the callers have talked about. Indeed, when we talk about this issue of WIEC withholding some of the examination papers, or some entire examination script and some just as subject specific, at every watch, we continue to do investigation to the previous WASI and then the last 2 years one as well. And this is one of the specific issues we've raised. That WIEC should be prompt in their investigation and release scripts that are of suspicion on time, because even at the tertiary, this is just at the BC level. Even what you have realized is that some people will intend going to school that particular year, but because WAEC withholds their result for or their script for a longer time, they are unable to continue their education that particular year. They have to wait, and if they are justified, they have to go the next year. WAEC will have to address this particular challenge. It's very important.
Okay.
And then also for parents that say, okay, my child has 1A, 6 A's, but unable to get schools, it's very possible. We have some of these issues. It's not a challenge about the system, but probably because your child has selected a very highly competitive school, and maybe the child has selected boarding, which is also competitive, and also selected a program that is also competitive. So if students come with better grade than your child, that they will pick that child, place them in the boarding school, place them in the program of choice, and then move your child to the second choice. If the child has still not met the merit, because other students who have taken that school are also have performed well enough, your child is again very likely to miss out on that.
Right.
The education is very important for us to get on this issue.
Okay. Peter, your wrap-up comments.
Yeah, on news, I think that the young people who aspire to lead various student fronts, that's so for their own personal parochial interest and not for the interest of the entire student body. And so we get people who really want to help the student body move to a higher level in terms of policy engagement, their interest and other things. We will continue to have this because those who have personal interest, they would always succumb to pressures from either political parties and then pursue the interests of their paymasters. We don't need such people to lead news because there has been a lot of policy issues in our education front where we were expecting that news would have taken the center stage and pushed for the interests of the ordinary students. They couldn't do that because their paymasters and those who push them to those positions are those who they listen to, and not the desire or the interest of the student body they seem to be representing. We need to clear that particular thing from the system, and if you don't do that, our student front will never be potent enough to fight injustice in the education sector.
All right. Thank you so much, Peter Anti, Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies. We're also joined by Divine Per, Research Fellow, Africa Education Watch. Earlier, we also had Member of Parliament for Otafo and a member of the Education Committee of Parliament, Vincent Eko Asifwa.